Hello and welcome to Movie Night Mates, a real-time film commentary podcast. My name is Dan, and I'm joined as I am every week by my two co-hosts, also fellow movie enjoyers, and the people that I see when I turn the lights off in my house. It's Avery and Jess. Hello, guys.
Hi.
And today is a special episode because today we're celebrating a special someone and their birthday coming up soon. It's Tom Holland, June 1st.
Tom Holland!
Is his birthday. I'm kidding. It's our very own Avery's 12th birthday.
Yeah!
In just a few weeks.
Yeah!
In just a week or so.
I can't wait until next year when I'm 13. Yeah. I'm old. Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, so today we are reviewing a movie that Avery chose, and that is... Avery, do you want to just kind of take it from here and introduce the movie that we're going to talk about?
Yeah. The movie is called His House, released in 2020. I think it went straight to Netflix in the US, so you can stream it there. But it was directed by Remi Weekes, and the screenplay was written by him. And do you just want me to keep going? Okay. Sorry, I'm new to this. So it's starring Wunmi Mosaku as Rial, Sope Dirisu as Bull, Matt Smith as Mark, and Maleka Wakali Abagaba as Niagak. And those are like really the main people in the whole movie.
Yeah, it's a very small cast.
Yeah, very tiny
While I was
cast.
watching it, I was like, if you could pull off the effects, this could literally just be a play. Like, you could do this on a stage pretty effectively. I mean, it's like basically one set the whole time. It could be like
Theater
a Woman
nerd.
in Black situation. Well, yeah.
No, yeah.
I'm just trying to see what in life could be a play.
I'm just
No, it's good, it's
saying.
That I could see that. I could see that too.
Yeah, totally.
So before, I wanted to give a little bit of a background on... Oh, actually, first let me talk about the little blurb that you see on the you know, when you click on the movie to start playing it. It's a refugee couple makes a harrowing escape from war-torn South Sudan, but then they struggle to adjust to their new life in an English town that has an evil lurking beneath the surface. And I wanted to give a very brief history on South Sudan in case no one, because I did not know it was a country.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know very little about this, and I won't speak to it because I don't know anything about the conflict in South Sudan at all. So
so South Sudan gained independence in 2011 from Sudan, so it's pretty new. But before then, like during, you know, it was just suffering a lot of ethnic violence and civil war and poverty, and it still is. The biggest ethnic population is the Dinka people. I don't know. I wouldn't say Dinkan. You know, like, oh, I'm Dinkan. I think it's just Dinka because I didn't see that when I was trying to research it. So I'm just going to say Dinka.
Also in the subtitles of the movie, it said speaking Dinka instead of like Dinkan.
Yeah.
Or
But like to identify
that's
yourself as someone, like to, you know, yeah. So, but yeah, so, you know, not to give too much away, the characters that we see are Dinka, and there's a lot of Dinka culture and mythology interwoven into this movie. So that's just like a little bit of a background. So let's crack into it.
Got it.
So
Okay, Em and Christy.
don't sue me, please.
And that's why we drink. Please do not sue us.
We are not sponsored. So, I mean, it just opens immediately, like, when it's going into the, what would you even say? Not opening credits, but, like, when, they're showing all the...
Establishing shots.
Yeah, or, like, the producer, like, they're listing the producers, or, like...
Yeah.
It just already creepy sounds, creepy noises, and it opens with a man holding a child, and he's breathing heavily like he's been walking for a while, and the child is holding a doll. And then this is a pretty fast sequence. It cuts to people loading onto the bed of a truck, and they're filling it so much that they all have to like stand up and crowd in. And the last people to get in are our main characters. Which, I mean, we can assume because it's like the camera's kind of focusing on them. And then the Rial, speaking Dinka, says she'll protect the girl, which is Nyagak.
Yeah.
And then it just...
Before we get too far into it, do you want to give just like a quick non-spoiler review of like whether or not we liked it, or...
This is my first time. Yes.
And personally, I would say, well, just so we can kind of like get our feelings out, Avery, do you want to start like on how you felt about the movie and watching it? Would you suggest it? I mean, I always suggest anybody listening to this to watch the movie first and make their own opinions as well. But, you know, just so we don't spoil anything for anybody.
Yes.
If they just want to get our quick opinion and then go watch it and then listen to the rest.
Yes, I would recommend you watch it, although I would give a trigger warning. Not too much like body horror, but, you know, war and violence
Self-harm.
Of that sort. Yeah, so I would definitely, if you need a kind of warning or an explanation, then I would listen to this first, just so you know what you're getting into, because it is pretty intense, and then go back. But, I mean, if you are a horror movie fan, then watch it first so that nothing is spoiled for you.
And also, it is like a TV-14, it said on Netflix, so it's not anything like crazy intense in terms of like language or violence or gore, but it is
just emotionally intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously you like the film, that's why you chose it. Personally, I wasn't crazy about it, but we can get more into that when we like really start discussing.
You, Dan.
I'm sorry.
Podcast over.
Yeah, I'm
but
done.
Despite that, you know, it is only an hour and a half. I always suggest like going to watch the movie. Really, only if a movie is truly terrible will I say don't watch it. But even then, we've watched like Dear Evan Hansen and Cinderella, and
You made me watch Leprechaun. Like,
expected people to watch through them with us. So, you know, there is that aspect to it, of course. And Jess,
I liked it.
That's it.
anything more?
Oh, well, we're gonna go into it.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
I don't know what else to say.
All right. Avery, back to Rial, Bull, and their daughter Nyagak on there.
Yeah.
Escape.
So they're on the truck, and then it just cuts immediately to them on a motorboat with a bunch of other people on. It doesn't look like it's cut out to be crossing the ocean.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of zooming in on the main characters because it's a really crowded boat. You just see a lot of people. And then we hear a bang and heads turn, and like suddenly there's people in the water, and it's just like flash. Like then you hear Nyaga screaming "Mama" and like struggling to swim, and then we see Bull waking up. So it was like a dream flashback, and Rial is next to him, asking what he dreamt about, and she looks a little serious, like she's been watching him, like a little concerned, but yeah, and then we see that they're like in a room that's like pretty simple looking, lots of natural light, but they're clearly somewhere different. And we know that they made it safely because a British person who's like a security guard is like, "Get to the gym. You need it in the gym." So they're like, okay. And they dress in like their nicest clothes. And this roommate that they have, I guess, is just a stranger. He's like, "You're not gonna, like, don't get your hopes up. You're not gonna, like, they're just gonna send you back." But they, like, clearly are like, "No, we can do this." They didn't say anything, but they were just looking at each other like they have a lot of faith in each other. And then you see, like, 3 white people behind tables, and the 2 are just sitting there, just, like, awaiting the rest of their lives, their fate, just, like, it's in their hands. And then you hear them whispering, like, "Where's the girl?" And one of them says they lost her on the way over last year, so they've been waiting here for a year to see if they're granted asylum. That's what they came here for, to seek asylum.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we'll give you asylum, but you're not citizens, and you have to report to us weekly. You can't work, and you have to stay in a home of our choosing, and you cannot move. So they were like, and then Bull says, we're good people. And they're like, that's not up to, like, I don't, whether you're good people or not, it doesn't matter, really. It's not up to us. Like, just do, just do as you're told, I guess. And so they, like, drive for hours, and no one's really telling them where they're going. And you could see that they're driving for a really long time because it was night when they left, and now it's like the sun is rising.
That transition was cool.
Yeah.
This was like the beginning of me paying attention to like the light effects and the way that they use light in the movie was that transition on the bus from, night to day. And I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there was one more. They're given an allowance of 74 pounds a week, which is nothing. I'll look that up really quick. I think that's like around $100, about $100 a week to live off of, like to fully make, buy everything, food, clothes, everything, $100. That is nothing. And they like can't move, they can't work, they can't do anything to supplement this money, which I was kind of shocked at. I thought that it was going to be like about them, maybe also working some pretty terrible jobs, and like suffering through that and like kind of going through that experience of being like, refugees or immigrants and just not really having the same opportunities. But I mean, it's even worse than that. They just have literally no opportunity. And I also want to say both main actors, love them and other stuff. Wunmi Mosaku, cool, plays Agent B-15 in Loki, which
I'm
I
watching
really
that
like.
now. Yeah.
And she was also in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, but I don't remember.
She's in Lovecraft Country, too.
I haven't watched that. I need to.
Oh, she's great in that.
And Sope Dirisu is in, he plays Elliot Finch in Gangs of London, which is a fucking awesome show. And anybody who's listening to this should watch that. It's gnarly. It's like some of the most intense and graphic action I've ever seen in a TV show. Like what they get away with in that is astounding for broadcast television. But go on. Sorry, I just had two interjections there.
No, it's okay. So they get to the place and they meet
a surprise Matt Smith.
Yeah, Matt Smith, and he's like working, as the, he's just helping them adjust and get into the house, and he's like, look at this place, it's a palace, and like all this stuff, and there's like debris. It's a pretty decrepit home. But, all Bull and Rial see is, like, it's just theirs. Like, it's just their home, and they're really happy about it to be safe. And you see, like, there are, like, a few bumps, but you see Bull, like, breaking down, crying, because he's just so happy that, like, they're safe, and, like, the shock is wearing off about, like...
I assumed that was him kind of breaking down emotionally and not really knowing how to process that. I assumed it was also a little bit of like overwhelming negative as well. He's happy to be there, but what they did to get there is also kind of hitting him and everything. Yeah. And also just the quality, the way they were living, because he said he used to work in a bank where they came from. Like they were well off, and now they're just like in this basically like old crack house more than anything. It's like covered in trash and dirt. And also I noticed that Matt Smith's character like immediately started reneging on promises that he's made like a minute before. Like he was about the door, he was like, oh, we'll fix that, we'll fix it, and then he's like, yeah, you can get some screws and you can fix it yourself, actually, like that kind of stuff. I was like, interesting, dickhead.
And he's like, be one of the good ones. Yeah, like, stay exactly. Quiet.
And he says something that's mirrored later in the movie as well. Is like, this is bigger than my house. Yeah. Whoa, like this. You should be so thankful. You're so lucky. And all this shit. Yeah. It's just like really
and
upsetting.
Just like them being like the fact that he worked in a bank. It's like they weren't. It's just like that kind of like breaking that stereotype of like, oh, immigrants are just here to leech off of people. Like he had a life. Like I'm sure they didn't want to leave, but they
Not
had
at
to.
all.
They had no choice.
Like you see in the flashback later, it's totally like they were living a pretty idyllic life, and they liked it a lot. But because of the Civil War, it got kind of torn from them. Yeah.
So basically, Mark is like just telling them to assimilate basically as fast as possible. He's like, make it easier for people. Rial isn't really adjusting well. Like I think she's a little slow going more than Bull, who's like really excited about it.
Yeah.
And so they're then like 15 minutes in, the scary shit starts to happen. Like they're listening to music on the floor, and
it's very
like
romantic
he's just,
and very
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, and then he's like pausing the music, and then you hear this like girl humming. And most of the time I muted all of this because I was alone and I can't stand, I hate scary movies, but I love them. But like, Jesus Christ. So it just really scared me, like little girls. And you're just like, the way the camera angles are, you're constantly looking for something in the background. And he's just like, what the fuck? And like, he steps and it's just like, and then there's like rowdy teenagers in the, like in the street, and
and like this, I guess housing area.
Yeah, it's like a suburb, but not really.
Yeah, it's like what we'd call like kind of probably Section 8 kind of housing, like that kind of council houses is what they're called in the UK, where it's kind of subsidized, cheaper living for lower income families. So that's my guess as to why they were put there. And we get this first really scary scene that is this movie gave me some good scares. I'll give it that for certain. And I really like that it established early on that the two of them are very much in love with each other. Like despite probably because of what they went through might have hardened their bond a little bit, but it's shaken it in other areas as well. Like it's not a perfect relationship to start with. And we'll see that get progressively worse.
But yeah, so I mean like but so like the teenagers, something bangs on the window, and I thought it was interesting how they showed, he definitely had an auditory flashback. So it's showing that he's not only having to deal with ghosts in the house, but his own PTSD, which could be one and the same, I guess you could say, like if you want to interpret it that way. But yeah, so he's already going like, it only really takes like a few days for him to be kind of unhinged, but he's like already thinking something's in the wall, like just listening around, messing
there was
with
like
stuff.
A bird because he was like clicking and stuff, and it's this started. So many of my notes are just don't put your fucking hand in there.
I know,
just
like,
don't
why
do
put your
it
hand
like
in the wall?
without a flashlight at least. And then later in the movie, is using a flashlight on his phone at least, and I was like, so you have a flashlight this whole time.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many times where he's just like, you know what? I'm gonna stick my hand in there.
Yeah.
Just might as well.
Like,
and
yeah.
Ugh. And it's like the first jump scare of the movie is when he's on the ground, like next to that hole.
Yeah, okay. So when he's on the ground and then he's like, he raises his head up and Yagak's behind him, that
just
shit
like,
got me. Eyes
like, open, just staring.
Like, I was like, no.
It's like The Grudge.
Yeah. And so he, wakes up the next day and he gets a haircut, and I thought it was interesting how he asked the barber where they are, and he says High Street, and Bull is like, in London, and like he says it kind of like dreamily, like he's like, oh, like we're in London, and the guy was like, why not? Like they have no idea where they are, like no one told them where they are, so like they, like how are they supposed to like get around? And then like he walks by a church and this white guy is like, are you one of the, he's like,
you one of them refugees?
Yeah. And he's like, I have something for you, and it's like a care package, and like Bull is like so honored by it. He looks so happy, and like and I'm like, bro, putting into perspective, this is like, he's, I don't want to assume, but this is like probably really nice for him to get this stuff.
Especially,
like,
I mean, just after like a year of
Yeah.
basically being like nowhere, like in this
Yeah.
terrible limbo. And it is like a movie about like being in purgatory in a sense, for the spirits and for these two people as well.
Yeah.
One thing I want to mention is Nyagak's doll, and Rial kind of makes a necklace from the doll's like trim. I don't know if it was either
like
that
the
she
hem of
pulled
it.
it off or that was a necklace and they hid it on the doll in case they didn't want it stolen or anything, because people do that, still kind of hiding the family jewels in a kid's coat or something like that when in these situations. And also I wanted to point out that her doll is a blonde, blue-eyed white girl as well, which is
I noticed that too.
a little interesting. Interesting to look at.
Yeah. Also, that white lady that he notices before he's going to get his haircut, just stroking her cat out the window, and he tries to wave, and she's just like, like he's not even there. I was like,
and then later in the movie, she comes back and she's like,
Yeah.
might as well go back where you came from.
Yeah,
You're not
I'm just
gonna
trying to
get in
help
here."
ya. Like, what?
I'd like to mention at this point, it is never morally incorrect to do a bad impression of a British person ever. So, go ahead and do your worst, because they did the worst for like centuries. So, do what you want to do. Oh shit! I just dropped a wire. Yeah, it was very cute seeing him like chilling with the lads in the pub.
Yeah. Singing
and
along.
dancing.
Yeah. And yeah, like he goes back home. Rial doesn't get why he was there doing that, like hanging out with the lads. And then he wakes up in the middle of the night. More scary shit happens. I don't even know. It was just so much happens in these scenes where the scary shit is going on. There's so much in the background, so many sounds, and like it's just like he's going through flashbacky type like nightmares like that are like that. Yeah, and then like with ghosts in the background, it's just insane.
Yeah. It's a comparison that's easy to make is like Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor and those kind of it's not Michael Dougherty. Mike Flanagan. His kind of ghosty horror movies, Doctor Sleep as well, which is a comparison that you can make, but also like one that my mind kind of made, and that was one of the reasons I wasn't like super crazy about this movie, because I was inevitably comparing it to that, which I know you shouldn't compare movies to others in the genre. You should really take it for something as it is, but it's just kind of like those Netflix ghost thing about grief and stuff. It just kind of automatically went there, which we can get onto later. But this is also a pretty cool sequence where he's like he sees like cord coming out of the wall, and he like goes to like grab it and pull it out, and it slowly becomes like a waterlogged seaweed boat
Like
rope.
Yeah.
And the doll is at the end of it. Meanwhile, in the background, you see the apeth,
Yeah.
like rising and kind of slowly coming towards it. Freaky as shit.
Yeah. And then there's the doll, and then these little hands just snatch it.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
Mine.
And then this is when he's like, all right, the wallpaper's all coming down. And because he like
some
wants
shit's
to see,
in here.
Yeah, and he like
Because then
thinks that the house
the hole
is rotting.
disappears.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
this is also where we get like kind of a perspective shift. It's like he goes on the back burner, and it's now like Rial a little bit is the focus for like the next 20-ish minutes or so, like her story.
Yeah, I literally said she's sleeping just fine right now. She's doing okay. I don't think Bo has slept in like a day or two, but she's just like, all right. And she comes down to see all the wallpaper, and she's just like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I was expecting there to be more of a conflict about that, about like him tearing their house apart that they just got. Like I was expecting her to be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we just got here. They told us to just be chill about this. and you're ripping the wallpaper down.
Yeah.
Like, why? But, she's also having flashbacks and everything as well.
Like she opens
she starts too,
the
at
closet
this point.
door. Yeah, she hears a child say her name, say mama, and she opens, which I thought was really cool, how you see her open this door and just this like white light is kind of flashed on her, like very subtly. And then it's like she sees Nyagak with just like a flashlight shown on her, so she's getting a kind of flashback. And then Bull gets a hammer at the store and like painting stuff and stuff, so it's like that's foreshadowing. And I don't know why he's picking up a hammer. And then Rial leaves the house with a hand-drawn map. Yeah.
Yeah, from
for
Matt
the
Smith.
hospital, and it's like, okay.
Was she pregnant or no? Okay,
I think she just.
Later,
they were like, you should probably get established.
Just check up.
Yeah, because you just went through a harrowing journey. I don't know if the facility where they were at, they probably did like a mediocre like medical test thing. But then an annual physical, so it's probably been a year. And then she's kind of getting like lost in this maze of these back alleyways. And she sees this like kid kicking a ball. She comes to a dead end and she sees a kid kicking a soccer ball. And she's like, okay, turning back around. And then she like goes and then sees the same kid coming out of the maze. And she's like, huh? And the kid's like, what? And it's just like weird. And then she comes upon these 3 black kids, like teenagers, like just dicking around in this
having
lot.
a good time.
And she starts speaking Dinka, like she's clearly relieved, and she starts speaking Dinka to them, and they're like, what? Like, what was that, miss? Yeah?
You what?
You what?
You fucking what?
And then they're trying to tell her how to get to Church Street. They're mocking the way she's talking, and then they're like, go back to Africa, like, what the fuck? Like, making fun of her. And I'm like, what? This is just so backwards. I was like, damn. And it just shows, like, once you get to where you need to be, a lot of people forget. Not that the teenagers are immigrants. They were probably born there. But, like, once you get to where you need to be, you kind of forget about other people's journeys to get where you are. I think that a lot of the time, like, if they're established, you know what I mean? Because obviously they weren't native to that area. So I'm like, why are you...
I mean, I feel like it was definitely a purposeful choice to make them black. Like, it was a bunch of white teens, and there's, like, nothing to really unpack there. It's, like, pretty standard racism. But, yeah, I think it was a very interesting choice of that. Because also, and I've discussed on, I think, the podcast before, that, like, there is certainly racism and institutionalized racism in the UK, but a lot of what they see as, like, the biggest struggle is between classes, like the lower class versus upper class. So like people of the lower class, no matter what race you are seen as kind of all one against kind of this oppressive upper class, which is still mostly white. There's certain intersections there. It's certainly an intersectional issue, but I think that was a really good narrative choice to make the kids that she kind of gets some probably the most overtly racist treatment from of anybody they interact with in the whole movie. Yeah. I mean, like, a lot of the white government workers, Matt Smith and everybody who's involved in, like, the housing are pretty, like, just full of microaggressions more than anything. But, like, it's those small things as well that just add up and mean just as much to someone who's experiencing them, I'm sure of. It's a really interesting choice and one that I think helps the movie. I really enjoyed the movie's story and characters for sure, and like the psychology of it. But it's more my faults with it come in the actual just filmmaking itself, which we talk about at the end. And we continue as Rial is at the hospital. Yeah,
she finally makes it, and it's this white lady who's a doctor, and she's trying to bond. Being like, oh, did your daughter make that neck or something? Like, do you have a kid? Like,
probably just trying to distract her while she's taking blood, because they always do that. Like, just have you talk about something else.
And then she notices the tribal scars and says that they're pretty. And then Rial says she's had them since she was a little girl. And the pattern on her arm that she gave herself was when she found her family butchered. which was
Yeah.
like, whoa. And the white lady's like, and then she talks about how there are two tribes where she's from, and they're killing each other. And so a lot of the time, with what I was reading with the ethnic, like it's genocide on both ends because they're just trying to wipe out each other. And mostly it's about like, because South Sudan is a very rural country. So it's like mostly about water and cattle herding rights and stuff, but it's still like, that shit is like, can get intense. So that's just like as a context. But she said, they're killing each other and you mark yourself to represent the tribe you're in. And she did both. So she was like everywhere and nowhere. She could just blend in.
Yeah, she said, I survive by belonging nowhere.
Yeah.
That's the line. I wrote that down. I like that a lot.
And the white lady is shook again. She's like, what? And then it kind of focuses on her. She's just kind of like done with the day, sitting in the living room, and she hears this man's voice saying, come.
Come.
And I knew it. And, she's like kind of unfazed by these little ghosties. She's like, oh, hey guys, what's up? Let's hang. And then, so she's kind of just like, yeah. And Bull comes home and he's like really happy she went outside. And then they're sitting down on the floor, with dinner ready that Rial made. And Bull gets a fork and knife and was like, we should use the table next time. And she's like, okay. And he's like, try eating with a fork and knife. And she's like, all you can taste is the metal. And that food isn't meant to be eaten with a fork and knife. It's meant to be eaten with your hands.
Yeah, it's literally how it's like designed.
Yeah. So he's like, I think you'll thrive here. And he's like just tearing that shit up. And he says we can start a family. And Rial is like, bro, what the fuck? Why would you say that? Like, did you forget? And he's just like very hopeful, very excited.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just one of many kind of hints to later in the movie of like, we can start a family. And I was like, did he just like say that? Like, is he just that? Is he a dick? Like, does he not realize that? It all kind of comes to a head later in the film. Quick little note here. Jess was in the episode, but she had to go. You might notice she wasn't talking for like 15, 20 minutes. It was because of like kind of tech issues. Her laptop is broken, and so she can't really like record as effectively. And yeah, so she will be back very soon, but it's just going to be Avery and I from here on out. And we continue by kind of talking again at their little dinner on the floor.
So she's against the fork and knife. She just wants to, eat how she usually eats.
Which is important because, I think holding on to your culture, they very clearly like represent like the two arguments of like for and against globalism or assimilation, we'll call it.
Yeah. It's like in your own home. Like, why are you like... Yeah. So then she's kind of spiteful at this point of how positive he is about everything, about the people there. And so she tells the story of the apeth, which her mother used to tell her. Mm-hmm. So she says, in her village, there was an honorable but poor man, and he wanted a home, and he wanted it so badly he began to steal from others. And one day he stole from an old man, not knowing he was an apeth, or, night witch, they also call it. So when the thief was building his home, the apeth lived there too, and the walls would whisper spells, and he wouldn't stop until he consumed the man completely. And Rial is like, the apeth has followed us, it's risen from the ocean, and she knows this because it spoke to her. And there's like a weird thump in the background, but they just ignore it. And she's like, we need to leave, we need to repay our debt, and we can be reunited with Niagak. And they're arguing in Dinka and English. Bull is just speaking English until the end when he's like, enough, like, stop, we survived. Like, and Rial is like, maybe she's still alive. And they're like, no. And Rial just calls him a liar, just looks straight in his face. I was like, damn. So,
I would like to mention at this point that Javier Botet plays the physical manifestation of the epeth in any appearance, and he's a fantastic character actor. Also is in Mama, It, as multiple characters, The Conjuring.
I think Conjuring 2.
Yeah, and just fantastic actor. So want to make sure that we recognize him in this part too. I mean, this was really interesting, and you said you were looking at the lore of this. Is the epeth an original creation for this movie, or does it have like an actual basis in true folklore? Are we not able to find that?
I was trying to find it, but it was only based on this movie. But
yeah,
when I did see like a website about it, it was saying how it's part of Dinka culture.
What, like witchcraft?
The epeth, yeah.
Okay, cool.
The night witch, and I think you can. There's probably other things in, within different ethnicities, different cultures in Africa that can allude to the same kind of thing. And, I wouldn't say it's like the Grim Reaper or anything, but I can't think of anything now. But like, yeah, there's definitely similarities probably between, lore 100%. And stuff. So Bull is going back to, tearing down the wallpaper, and then scary shit happens again. And this scene made, like, this is when I had to stop and then watch it the next day during the daytime, because my feet went cold when this little girl runs across being like, "Mama," like, no.
He's just like running through the hallway.
Yeah, right? And then there's like there's a man like kind of rocking back and forth. You see more people.
I mean, it's just like boatloads of people at this point.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that they're like portrayed as kind of zombie-like in a Western understanding of like rotted, reanimated corpse, when, I mean, zombies have such in American history, have such a connotation with, enslavement. That's where they started in film. The White Zombie, 1930s film with Bela Lugosi, is the first kind of on-screen visualization of zombies in the U.S., except, it's made with Haitian voodoo undertones there. They're not dead people. They're people who have been mentally enslaved by this like magician guy who is white and commands an army of black zombies. And then, of course, Night of the Living Dead as well was the movie that created the modern zombie in 1968 and stars a black main character, and at the height of the kind of civil rights era, wasn't a very important movie, not only in terms of horror, but in terms of its cultural impact and having a black man as the main character who's calling the shots and is kind of a leader among these people who are trying to survive a zombie outbreak. So I don't know if that was an intended message of this movie, but it was one of the readings that I had specifically of this scene. And one of the
I think that scene is later.
Really? Oh my gosh.
No, it's fine. I mean, there's just so many, because it's just the man and the girl of Niagak, and then like I wanted to point out she's wearing like a mask, definitely like a tribal mask, and she's kind of painted her skin, and then it cuts to the morning. So the next scary part would be.
Oh my god!
Okay. I got them confused. Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the flaw of this movie. I think is it's kind of a lot of the same in a way.
It's pretty samey. I mean, it like in one sense it's good because it conditions you to be afraid of that living room because like that's where the bad shit's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, in another sense it can make them bleed together of just being, oh, it's Bull in the living room and the lights are off, or he's hearing stuff that isn't there, and now we're going to get some scary ghost girl. But I think I'm still on the side of it was well executed and overall led to some really good scares. I'm trying to find where that actually... Oh, yeah. That's a little bit later. You're right.
So then he runs outside because he's just like he's just scared, needs some air. And he comes back in, Rial is downstairs, and she's like, you saw it. And then, also, when they were fixing the door in the morning, like, this was, like, way before, he was trying to throw out the doll. And she was like, no.
This doll keeps kind of coming back.
Yeah, and then the doll came back in the closet on top of the trash bins.
Be who you.
And he's, like, gathering their belongings, and she says something like, that's my father's. And I just was like, that could be the last thing she has of her dad. And he's collecting it, and he starts to burn everything because he's saying it's cursed.
It's very supernatural, the show.
Yeah, and she just was like
burning all the cursed items.
And like it seems like this is, this is an accepted part of their culture, because she wasn't like, she just said, that's my father's. She wasn't like, what the fuck? Like, she was kind of like resigned about it. Like, she had this just like kind of like acceptance until he sees the necklace and he tries to take it off, and she's like, don't leave me with nothing. And he just yanks it off of her and just throws it in the fire. And that's when she's like, what the fuck? And so he doesn't have many clothes because they burned them. So he walks into a store with like flip-flops and sweatpants, and there's just this jacket, and he looks homeless, kind of just like dirty. A security guard immediately follows him like around the store, which is like without talking to him, but like it was just like he like stood at attention when he walked in, something like that. And something I noticed that was which I didn't notice the first time I watched it, was when he, sees a picture of this white model wearing this shirt, and he has that shirt and he kind of holds it up to him, and then he gets the same pants, the same shoes that this model's wearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then you see a picture of a family, the model, and then Rial, when they go home, is wearing the same exact thing that the white woman is wearing.
Oh,
and she's kind of like fiddling with like the sleeves
lace at the top.
Yeah, because she's like not used to it. And I was just like, oh wow, like this is, it's just like showing that he's just really trying to fit in
whatever he can. Buying like, the English clothes from Primark or H&M or whatever.
So like just the basic. So he's trying to like rewire the house, and it seems like it's a little positive, like things are kind of looking up a little bit. I don't know, just nothing is like tense is happening. He's proud of himself. He got the lights working everywhere, even though there's like bloodstains everywhere because he did cut himself while doing it. So there's like, but it just shows like he would stop at nothing. Like he's just really determined to make this work.
Yeah, and he does succeed. He does rewire everything successfully, because none of the light switches have worked up to this point. Like when they just kind of come on and turn off at their own will. And so of course that's when the next horror scene will happen in a little bit, because that's when the light switch actually works. And I just noticed like a stark contrast between the house and the mall that he buys the clothes in. Like in terms of lighting, the mall is very white and stark and bright, versus the house, which is very like dingy and discolored at this point because all the wallpaper's off. And not exactly the greatest place to be living. Yeah. So he's turning on the light in the kitchen, and it's just like this fluorescent light comes on, and Rial is talking to someone who's not there. Yeah, and she's like, he doesn't want to leave you, like perhaps if you spoke to him. And it seems like she's talking to Nyagak, to that ghost who is clearly in the house. And then they're kind of arguing at the table, because they're eating dinner at the table this time. Mm-hmm. And I really liked in this part that they were never, despite being across the table from each other, they were never framed in the same shot. You would just maybe see like their hand, the other person's hands you're just coming showing in, like how but their opposite, heads, their faces. So like to create that separation between the two of them, which I liked a lot. They're just coming from totally different perspectives right now. And he's like, I don't like you being alone all the time. Kind of, it's not like gaslighting, but he is being a little manipulative here, just trying desperately to be in control of their situation. Definitely not getting a lot of sleep. So he's just like, and he's like, make friends and be good. And she's like, what? Like,
we're not like them. We can't be. And they do bond a little bit over, they make fun of people down the street saying, like, oh, is that the Queen of England? Like, or is that, like, Queen Elizabeth? Like, they just, like, make fun of them. Or is, like, where's Charles? Like, funny shit like that. So, like, he knows, but then he still has this idea that he can be like one of them. And she's like, you know what? Like, maybe I'm going crazy, but, like, these ghosts don't scare me. Like, after the shit that we've seen, like, they're telling me I should be afraid of you more than being afraid of these freaking ghosts. Like, I'm not worried about them. And so this scene was kind of like...
This leads into the scene that I already talked about. Thing.
Yeah, so
it's like a really cool shot of him kind of struggling to use the cutlery, right?
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
like,
and then it, like, pans out. Yeah, and it's just like this... the crumbling foundation of his house, and he's alone at this point, just at the table, and it's just panning out, and he's over the water. There's this, like, really cool, like, orange light behind him. And then the empath is in the distance a little bit, and he kind of like looks, speaking in Dinka, and he looks down at his feet, and there's all these bodies under him, and there's like one decomposed one, and the eye looks right at him, which I thought was a cheap scare, but like that was the only one that I didn't like. Mansion. I was like, yeah.
I mean, it's certainly, I feel like one of the major themes of this movie, aside from assimilation versus, you know, holding onto your culture and heritage, is certainly like survivor's guilt personified in these scenes of, you know, of why was it me that survived to this point, you know, kind of living on the sacrifice of millions of others who weren't able to make it, and you know, coming to terms with that, especially towards the end of the movie, of coming to terms with being a survivor in a situation that's just so dire, and you know, kind of living to honor those people who died in the process of getting to a life that they thought was going to be better and safer.
Yeah. So so they're clearly, you know, they're just, he's like knee deep, and he's like backing away, kind of like trying to crawl away, and the bodies are just rising around him, from the water. And then he just wakes up. It was just a dream, leaning against the wall in the living room. So again, he's like sleepwalking, or just like not sleeping well or right. And then more scary shit happens. Like, this is when, since the lights are working, you're like, okay, he could just switch the lights on and they're gone.
Yeah. Because
that's what he has been kind of doing. But then you see Nyagak next to the light, and I'm like, girly, no. Like, she's there. For a second,
I thought she saved him. I was like, what?
Yeah, because he was trying to get away from this man who was, like, walking up to him. And here you're hearing, like, she's saying, help me. They're saying, I'm cold. And he reaches to turn off the light switch, and just these people, like, there's just all these voices saying, I can't breathe, help me, I can't swim.
Yeah, I wonder if the I can't breathe was, because this was originally released in January 27th, 2020 at Sundance, but then it got its wide release in October 2020, and I wonder if that might have been added in the ensuing months, given that you know, we had a very large Black Lives Matter movement in the U.S., at least, in June of 2020, and I Can't Breathe was a very important part of that as well.
Yeah.
So it makes...
But it could be, like, wonder. Even in the afterlife, they're still, like, suffocating, or they're still stuck there under the water. And
I really
like, I can't... Yeah.
In this scene, aside from that, the use of light and dark and shadow to build tension, as well, of just kind of very pitch black corners of the room of, like,
and then just someone comes out of that fucking corner.
Yeah, I mean, because it's kind of like built up to finally, we get like a ton of people in the shadows and existing in the shadows. So and so then they're all surrounding him, and Nyagak climbs on top of him. And at this point, I was getting the sense that they're not. Because, I mean, I know that they're, like, ghosts, and they are just, like, you know, maybe they don't have the power to actually hurt him. But I think that they more so were just, like, really asking for help instead of, like, trying to be malicious. I think they were just lost and just being, like, help me. Like, and they were just surrounding him. But he was freaking out. And Nyagak goes to cut
Yeah,
his
no,
throat.
yeah, that's why
So
I was
she's
like,
definitely pretty
she's out
vengeful
there.
in terms
Well,
of the spirit.
yeah, I mean,
it's a very
she should
similar
be.
like interpretation to twists in other movies. Spoilers for I'm about to spoil Last Night in Soho and Scooby-Doo Zombie Island, where it's revealed in both that the supernatural beings aren't trying to kill the central characters. They're like trying to warn them or like get help from them. But you know, because they perceive them as scary, it's just like immediately. But yeah, we never really get a solid answer to that, but I really like that reading of this scene of coming for help instead of revenge or killing. Because I mean, yeah, none of those spirits would have anything
against him.
Yeah, against him.
It's just like it's just definitely preying on that survivor's guilt that he has, like you mentioned earlier. Like
totally.
That's what they're going for, and so then he gets the hammer. He turns on the light and they disappear, and he's like, "Fuck this! This is my house!" And he smashes all the walls.
This is my house.
Yeah, he just yells, smashes shit, trying to get Nyagak, who's in the walls, crawling around in there, because there's holes, and so you see her like crawling in, and he's just like bam, bam.
I think the movie should have ended here with him yelling, "This is my house." Then you just see like on the outside, just like someone walking by and goes, "Wow, that's his house."
That is, oh my god, that's his house. Oh my god, they're roommates. But so he's just unraveling. He's on a bus he's going to Mark. Mark is just sitting in front of him, like confused. Everyone's kind of looking at him in the office, like, what? And
he's like, yeah, you right, mate.
Yeah, he's like,
right.
He's dirty, a little bloody. Just kind of has this like smile, like this like teary-eyed smile, like he's like, we need to live somewhere else. And they're like, well, I mean, can you tell me what's wrong? And he's like, Rial is ill, there's so many rats and bugs. And then Mark is being like, well, I mean, like, I'm not gonna say this, but people will think like you're biting the hand that's feeding you, type of shit.
Yeah,
like,
not adapting.
You should be grateful.
It'll
and then
raise a
other
lot of
people,
questions.
other people in the office say like, yeah, that house is bigger than mine, blah blah blah. And this is another microaggression. He was like, yeah, I worked in a bank too before all the jobs moved abroad. I was like, seemed a little like,
yeah, and he's like, he like tries to turn into like a teaching moment and being like, life is showing you what kind of man you are supposed to be or whatever it is.
And
like,
he has a glass of juice in his hand. Bull has a glass of juice, and he's just like, he just squeezes it, and then he just like notices, and he comes to, and then he just runs out. He just runs out of the office. The way he did that was, and everyone was like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, he was just like, and just goes, and like you see he's like trying to explain, but like, who's gonna believe him that he's seeing shit? Even if he was very like mentally ill, I think like they wouldn't have taken him seriously if he just chalked it up to PTSD flashbacks, because then it's like, well, that could be in any house, because they were like, well, there's rats in every house, and he's like, I don't care about the rats, and Mark was like, I thought you just said that the rats.
Also, there are not rats in every house. There's no rats in my house. That's not a super common.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's such bullshit.
So it was a way to
like
like catch him, to be
excuse,
like, yeah. And then he was like, yeah. So then he leaves, and then they follow him home because they're like, what the fuck was that? And the whole time Rial is just sitting on the couch.
She gets her necklace given back to her.
Nyagak gives the necklace. She sees all these faces in the walls, and then she just looks back like, all right, cool. And then we see the old woman being like, why don't you just leave? Like, I'm trying to help you. And Bo's like, this is my house. Like, we're staying.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mark comes up with another guy. And they're like, we need to take photos and stuff. And then, like, because this shit is, like, crazy. There's all these holes in the wall. Like, what did you do? And he was like, we're not going back. Like, please let me fix this. And he was like, we're one of the good ones, remember? Like, he's just trying to just,
cling to this, yeah.
And Mark is like, okay, I'll let it slide. And the other one's like, come on, man. Like, just, I don't know why he wants them to suffer. I don't know. And then Riel comes in wearing their bed sheets in probably the traditional garb that she would have worn in South Sudan. And she's like, have you told them about the witch? And they're all like, what? And she's like, just saying, what the Apeth is doing. And Mark and the other guy are just like, what the fuck? And then they leave and they're like, we need to write them up. Like, they can kiss England goodbye.
Yeah.
She was wearing her bed sheets, like, And then they're by the window, and she's just bashing them, just white men in general, too. And I'm like, okay, go off, girl. And because, like, she's like, you're idolizing them. Like, you're like, saying we're not like them, but you're idolizing them. And she's calling them out.
They like to see us crazy. Let them send us back. Like, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
she's like, I want to go back.
And then Bull just goes crazy and traps him inside the house. He smashes all the window handles and door handles off and everything.
Yeah, he just locks her in, and then he's like, you know what? Let me just talk to the Apeth myself. I keep wanting to say Apeth myself. So he lights a candle, does some meditation, like I guess.
Why don't you just try... going in and giving them your resume, like that kind of vibe. Like, I'll just talk to them myself.
Let me just email Lin-Manuel Miranda so I can get booked and blessed. So he's like, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. And so the Apeth, there's not a hammer. He has the hammer in his hand. I was reading that note. There's a fire that, like, kind of lights far in the distance. It looks far in the distance, but it's just at the end of the living room. And he's asking him to show himself, and the Apeth just says, your life is not yours, you stole it, and you just repay what you owe.
Calls him a thief a lot.
Yeah, and he wants his life for Nyagak. And he tells him to take the knife and cut himself and, to exchange bodies. And then he's like, why don't you just come for me yourself? And he sees that the fire was like an illusion, like he sticks his hand in it, and he's like, oh, pictures don't scare me, which, oh my god, bro, everything before was scaring you, so...
Yeah, he's like, pictures don't scare me, and then the Apeth immediately shoots back with, why don't you sleep?
Yeah!
He got red real fast on that one.
And then he's standing on the water in the ocean, and there's a storm, and then he's like, no. I'm like, bro, you asked for this. Like, you literally said, you can't touch me. He said, you're a bag of tricks. And he said, make yourself at home. Like, the cockiness. I was like, bro. So,
and then we see, from Riel's perspective, Bull's just kind of, like, catatonic on the couch, and he peed on himself.
He peed him. I peed myself. So, and then, like, the scene that he saw was Nyagak just rising from the water, and he covers his eyes, but then there are other arms which I thought was pretty cool, that come to hold him back, and other hands get his face so that he, like, has to watch, and this, like, octopus is, like, coming out of her mouth.
I thought it was going to be something a little scarier. It was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he was like, no. I'm like, I mean...
Maybe they thought of something scarier, but then didn't have the budget for it.
Yeah, or because of what we are going to find out later, he's like, just that massive guilt is just like, anything about her is haunting. And so then Rial sees him, in this, like, weird state, and she's like, all right, now's my time. And she tries to escape, and he just, like, wakes up and is like, no. She stabs him with a screwdriver, and then she gets out of a open window to escape. And as soon as she leaves, which I thought was a really cool transition. It was confusing at first, but watching it the second time, it was like, you could appreciate it. She leaves, and she clearly isn't in the UK anymore, or you don't know where exactly she is, but you can assume she's back in South Sudan.
Which she
on
is,
kind of like a schoolyard. You hear children playing in the background, and she has a backpack on. So, because of, like, she was getting ready to escape, so she had this backpack of her belongings and stuff, and it's kind of like she's like a schoolgirl again.
Mm-hmm. I assume she maybe just worked at the school.
Yeah, I thought so too. Like, a little, maybe both. Maybe she probably went to that school and then worked there. Like, if it's a rural area, you're probably staying in the
and this is where we get, like, kind of the extended sequence of their escape. Like, we saw clips of it throughout the movie, especially in the beginning, but now we just get, like, fully, and she was at this school, and
Yeah, and they're all like singing and celebrating, and
Fucking, yeah, it was pretty intense.
and they all sit down, and she's so happy, and then she's like smart enough to realize that it's not real, and she asks where Nyagak is, and they're like, who? And she's like, my daughter, and they're like, who? And then we see Bull, he's like, Rial, he's looking for her, and he's dressed differently, probably coming from the bank. He's like in a button down, kind of sneakers. Khakis.
He has great sneakers throughout the entire movie, by the way. He had some awesome shoes.
Yeah, I liked the shoes that he's wearing in this.
Yeah.
In this scene. And she comes out of this cabinet where she was hiding in, and you just hear machine gun fire in the background. And he finds her, and he's like, come on, we have to go. And she's just kind of standing there in shock, and he's like we need to go. And they pass just... Everybody, it's just a massacre. Dead, like, all the women that she saw were just dead, just shot up. And then you see Rial and Bull are hiding on the roof as people, with guns are taking belongings like furniture and stuff. And then they're just walking. I don't know where they're going. I don't know if they know where they're going, but they're just walking, and there's just gunfire and explosions behind them. So this is when, like, they probably had escaped it until now, and then it reached their area, and they were like, okay, we have no choice, we have to go.
Because, South Sudan as a country was officially given independence in, I think, 2011, and then this civil war started in 2013, so it's...
Yeah, and they've had, like, this has been starting the tribal wars, too, since, like, the 60s. So it's, like, there's always been... But, yeah, definitely, like, the intense warfare would probably be...
And the Civil War reached an end in 2020 as well, the same year this movie was released.
Oh, wow.
Peace was achieved, allegedly. I have to, again, read more into that. That's the shortened version of that. And this is where we get, like, a fucking huge twist, which I didn't know about, and I think was really well executed.
Yeah, because there's, like, this really crowded bus, and they realize, like, oh, this is our way out to get out of here. And then you see this little girl, Nyagak, and she's like, Mama? And she's looking down up at Bull, and she's clearly just, like, lost. She's just looking for her mom. And Bull is just he's like, please, let's have room for 2 more. And they're like, we're only taking children, like women and children. And then they keep going back and forth, and then people in trucks start to come with, like, their guns, and just, like, a huge panic starts. And he grabs Nyagak, and he's like, see, she's a child, let us in. So it's not even his kid. Yeah, they just go.
That's the revelation, is that.
And then you see on the bus, her mom, Nyagak's mom, is like, Nyagak, calling, like, pounding on the walls, and she's screaming for her mom. And then you see her, she's running after the bus, just, like, sobbing. And I don't know if she was, on the website that I saw, they said she was shot down, but I didn't see, there was too much, like, dust.
Yeah, she gets, like, kind of just swallowed up by
and she just, you can assume she's dead, because they were probably trying to shoot every single person that was trying to escape. But then it's revealed that, that's not the real daughter. And Rial's just, like, looking back at Bull, just, like, squeezing her, being like, shut up, like, stop, like, stop crying. And she's, like, screaming. And then, and then Rial is back in the classroom, and that's when she remembers. Because at the time, I don't, like, think
I think she was in kind of, like, a fugue state.
I don't think she actually remembered. I don't think either she was in, like, such intense denial, or just, like, her brain just blocked it out, and she really thought that was her daughter. Because I'm sure the journey, like, from the bus to the truck to the ocean was probably pretty long. So they developed, like, she probably developed, like, this motherly relationship with her.
Yeah. So, to recap, they stole someone else's kid to pass off as their own, to get on this bus out.
It's like the
kid's
Titanic.
Mom got killed. Then they just let the kid drown.
Yep. Yeah, Bull is saving Rial in the water, and Rial clearly wants to get Nyagak, but Bull is like, no, and there's someone rescuing them from, like, there's another boat, and he's just taking her, and she's like, and she screams mama, don't know which mama she's referring to, but Yeah. And so then Rial just breaks down with all these women, and then a voice, the Apeth, is like, you can save her if you kill Ball.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay.
So we're now back in
Yeah.
the
Yeah, because
present
she was
day
asleep.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just outside, I
Ball's-
guess she, like, knocked herself. I don't know what happened.
His shirt at this point, it's interesting. He's wearing like his English bought shirt, and it's just getting dirtier and bloodier throughout this entire thing, which I think is a really interesting detail as well.
Yeah.
Just get it getting kind of messed up.
Yeah.
During the.
Yeah. So they're kind of just like, she kind of just accepts it that he's bringing her back. I think she's just so exhausted from the realization, because that is a huge realization to come to. And then there's a knife on the table, and she is thinking about it, and then but Bull realizes himself, and he does it himself. He cuts his arm.
Oh
and
yeah, this was so.
she's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like,
And
"This
they
is
kinda,
what
like,
it wants."
reconcile. Yeah.
Yeah,
with
he's
each
like, "Let
other.
me save her," and he's like, "I see her too, and I should have tried harder." And that's what's when he's like, you see his guilt. He's like really feeling guilty that he couldn't save her. And then the ground cracks, and the Apeth just comes breaking through. We're breaking free through this like sandy hole, and
Yeah, there was
this
some
bald
great
little
effects in this.
gremlin, this tall gremlin-looking thing.
And it like starts putting its fingers into the
Oh,
cut.
God.
It was so. I mean, really good makeup.
I thought he
work
was gonna
of, like,
suck
as
on his arm, but no,
how it was
much
getting
worse.
like assimilated into his
Yeah.
body. It was so great. It was like very painful. But yeah, Nyagak's back with Rial, and Rial kind of has a realization of not, living in this past that she can't really change, and instead trying to make the best of like what they can with their current present and their future.
Yeah.
And rejects her, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and it got me thinking, like, would it even be her? Would there be a catch to it?
Mm-hmm.
Would she still be kind of like this demon, like a ghost?
Yeah, and also she was
like,
never
could she
her
leave the
child.
house?
Like,
yeah,
why is she entitled to bring her
Right.
back? You barely knew this child, and you are. Although I think Bull is more responsible for her death. I mean, Rial, just as she could have very easily stopped him or
yeah. She was
called
just
him
kind
out
of
on the
sitting
bus.
there. Yeah,
So there's some guilt there too. But I really like this ending because at first I was like, I thought they were just gonna go through with the Apeth taking him, and I was kind of like, okay, that's a little weird that she's being rewarded for also being kind of
Yeah.
just as culpable for this issue. So I'm glad the direction that they went instead, to kind of like reconcile and reaffirm their relationship and live with the guilt, but move forward from it.
yeah, because she's saying she's back in the classroom. Like, it's kind of like a sequence of her
multiple
and
shot.
Nyagak,
scenes.
yeah, and then she's back with the women, and she's like, I'm going home. Like, I have to say goodbye now. And, like, Nyagak's hand is almost in hers, but she just, she just leaves, and she takes the knife. You see her behind the Apeth as he's burrowing in, and she takes the knife, and she, stabs him and, like, slits his throat. Just
Yeah.
grabs his head and just fucking... And,
Also
yeah.
gnarly, yeah.
Yeah. And that was crazy. And then the people that Mark sent to investigate, to do a full thing, are here. And, the
As
walls
is Mark,
are...
yeah.
Yeah, and,
And this was like my favorite exchange in the movie.
Yeah.
Is there still a witch? And then Bull just very like nonchalant is like, Rial killed it, and they're like, okay.
yeah, he's
Okay.
like, all right.
But yeah,
and
it's
like
patched
everything's
up and
patched up. Like there's a carpet
looking
over
nicer.
the hole. And they're just taking pictures. Like they didn't even bother moving the carpet. They're just
Yeah,
like,
the
it was
picture
probably like that
sound is
anyway.
just like
yeah.
they're just so like nonchalantly and apathetically going and taking pictures of everything.
And he's like, your ghosts follow you, and it's when you let them in that you can start to let go and focus on yourself and face yourself. And so they're just like, okay, that was weird, but nothing's wrong. And he's like, this is our home. Like we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, we're happy here.
Yeah.
That's what he says. And that's the last line of the movie, and then they kind of like look.
Yeah.
And you see
and then all these people. So they leave, and Rial and Bull turn to see Nyagak in the doorway, and then cuts back to them, and suddenly all these people are filled.
Yeah, but they're not like zombies anymore.
They're just
selves. Yeah,
they're
nice
just
touch.
normal looking people dressed, because now that they don't need help anymore. I think they've come because they're not trapped by the Apeth, or they're just they've had closure themselves.
Yeah.
Because Bull and Rial have faced them and have let them in. And so they're just standing there, and then it cuts back to Nyagak, and she has a bunch of people, mostly kids, around her.
Mm-hmm.
And Rial takes Bull's hand, and then it's empty, and it's just them in their house. And that's how the movie ends.
And it ends.
Yeah.
That's his house.
His house?
Yeah, to kind of wrap things up, how we do it here is we kind of give the movie a rating out of 10, say our favorite scene and our favorite character, if we have one. I can kick us off to kind of just discuss why I said I wasn't as crazy about it as you guys. And it was mostly, as I said, I really like the story. I think that it was, an important one to tell, especially through kind of a horrific horror movie, a thriller at least. And I really appreciated kind of just the small, focused cast. As I said, it could be very easily done as a play. And there were quite a few scares in there that I liked, but, where it fell off for me was sometimes the directing and camera work just fell, a little flat and, kind of felt like first pass stuff in terms of... And as I said, we've been spoiled with Mike Flanagan ghost movies and The Conjuring and all these other I guess with supernatural horror I kind of hold it to a little bit higher of a standard than I do for a slasher, because supernatural horror has been so associated with this modern, I deign to call it elevated horror, but people who are seeing horror as more than just schlock that you see in a grindhouse, which it's always been great. All kind of horror is great. And I guess also it's kind of victim of that. It has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I had really high expectations of it. That, if I'd come in fully blind, I probably would have enjoyed this more. But, the performances, the story, and, I really like the lighting, but some of the camera work and direction, I just felt a little made for TV-ish instead of, kind of a cinematic experience, when in these kinds of movies with ghosts, and they start to get really experimental towards the end, like that great scene that we were talking about where he's eating and then it pulls out, and I just feel like we could have had some more fantastical imagery and camera movement instead of kind of these basic static shots. But overall, I'd say I'd give it probably a 6.5 out of 10, maybe a 7, I don't know. But I feel comfortable with 6.5. My favorite character, I mean, it's tough because I think the two central characters are really well written and very well acted by both of them. So I'll just call it a tie for that for different reasons. And my favorite scene is definitely the scene with the light switches turning on and off and all the bodies kind of coming at him and all that. I thought that was kind of the most intense scene in the movie, and I really thought that was well executed. I mean, and I guess another criticism we kind of already went on is that sometimes the scary scenes do bleed into each other and kind of blend very easily. And then Jess sent me hers that I can read off after yours, unless you want me to do hers first. It's up to you.
I don't mind. Whatever you want.
If you want to respond to anything that she might have to say. But no, go ahead.
Okay. I would give this, I mean, when I first saw it, I was fucking blown out of my mind. I would give it a 9 out of 10. Just because just scary movies are just, I'm not really good. I can get scared very easily, and this one definitely did that. But also, I was reading an interview with the director, Remi, and he was saying, even if you took away all the ghosts, this would still be kind of a terrifying story just of their journey.
Yeah, that's one thing I really liked about it too. I just want to make clear that I think that this was an incredibly important movie to be made, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that it exists. And I hope to see more from Remi Weekes. I think that, he can kind of just go up from here and with a bigger budget on probably what he's going to make next, make something just like amazing as well. So
Yeah.
sorry,
And
go on.
no, it's okay. And I just liked the commentary, because the only thing that I really know of, I don't know as much as you, but Get Out was the one that, like, in terms of commentary and how layered it is. And this one is just a story that needs to be told and isn't told as much, because you don't know. I didn't even know South Sudan was a country. Like, people don't know the plight of immigrants in other places. Like, I don't think the U.S. gives any help, so...
Yeah, not just
at
immigrants,
least
but
the UK does
specifically
that.
refugees, like people who are running from almost certain death, basically. Like, and it's a huge issue in the UK. That's one of severe discussion, I would say. Like, that's one of the most highly discussed political subjects over there, and that's what things people vote on, and vote for, and we've experienced that in the U.S., but I don't think nearly to the same degree that it's been such a hot button topic as it is in Europe specifically.
No, yeah, that makes sense. And Remi was also saying, I confused it because he was reading a book called The Good Immigrant, which is like inspired, like how it's just all this performative, like you're trying to be one of the good ones, one of the best, to prove yourself and to show that you belong there, when you don't, like, you just deserve to be there. And I also just thought it was a little refreshing, because a lot of the commentary movies that we see are about America and America's issues, and I didn't know that it's such a problem there until you told me just now, or just like how bad it still is, like the allowance thing, and just like they don't even know where they are. They give them help, but it's like it's clearly not enough. And how, like we were saying before, like it is a white supremacy thing, like it is still very prevalent, and it was just kind of refreshing to not see it. Not that I'm defending America in any way, but like seeing it take place in America was kind of like, it's everywhere. It's not just like just here to have a commentary on it. You can have it anywhere. So my favorite scene would probably be the scariest one for me, which was when I was saying my feet like fucking went cold, which would lead into... No, it wouldn't lead into the zombie
it doesn't
one.
lead into that one.
Right,
No.
that's her being like, Mama.
Yeah, misunderstood, yeah. Where she's running through the hallway.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my favorite character is probably Rial, because her journey and her arc, I think, like, she forgave him. Like, she did not have to... and I think she forgave herself, but, like, I think it was on Bull. Like, he was the one that took her. And... I think that was like a massive, like, and I think she's still, she's happy to be there, but I think she's definitely, I hope that she's still going to hold on to, like, towards the end, like, if the movie continued, that she'd hold on to her culture and still be really proud. And I like that she wasn't trying to let go.
Yeah. I think, I agree there that maybe she edges out Bull for me. I mean, it's not that I like his actions. I just think that they're both very well written, as you said.
Yeah.
Like, they're very tangible and realistic.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. And I like both of the journeys that they kind of go on, of accepting different parts of what happened on their way there. Because, as I said, she's culpable, but she's not nearly as guilty as him. She didn't grab Nyagak. She just didn't stop him, which, it's very different.
Yeah,
there.
and the actress, Wunmi Mosaku, was like, I never liked horror movies. I thought they were kind of stupid, but then she saw Get Out, and she was like, okay, I can get behind this, because it's like commentary. So when she read the script, she was like, this is the kind of shit I like, and I think she did a great job. And I had seen her before in Lovecraft Country, so I already kind of was familiar with her, and I just really liked her acting, like when she broke down in that scene, and then the realization of being like so happy, and then she's like, you're not real. Like, Bull is kind of so quick to be like, oh shit, like these ghosts, and he's like unhinged, but she's like, wait, no, this isn't, so I think she's
Yeah.
really smart in that way, and jaded, but like it's necessary. I mean, the shit that they went through,
Seriously.
yeah.
And Jess says that she rates it a 7 out of 10. She says the acting was phenomenal. I think the 3 main character performances were really emotional. The story, I'm not sure if that's Nyagak or Matt Smith she's talking about there in terms of 3. I'm assuming Nyagak, but the story was so interesting and something I don't know much about. South Sudan's war, obviously can't relate to seeking asylum, and weaving in the folktale aspect was so fascinating. Plus the lighting and sound design were great, and she loves a 90-minute movie, which I agree with that. I love when horror movies...
They fit a lot in.
Yeah, when they can't be 90 minutes, because when they go over, it's very rare that they're able to keep the tension up. Favorite character was Rial, she says. And her favorite scene was the one of Bull eating dinner, and then it pans out to the ocean. That sequence was really scary and out of place for the movie they'd set up so far, and I thought it was really cool. Yeah. I have to agree with her there on that it kind of came out of left field, and then I was kind of hoping for more like that, and we never really got it, which kind of disappointed me.
I was just surprised, because it was kind of the same, like the scene on the water, and then another scene on the water in the second act of the movie, and then the first act was just all in the house. So I can see how, like, it's kind of redundant, a little bit of the scares, but, like, it's just, like, they're stuck. They can't go anywhere. That's like hard because they don't know where they are. So that's like, that's like also another commentary. Like, it looks boring, but it's like they're stuck with their PTSD, with their own ghosts.
Yeah,
they don't even know where they are.
They have no form of entertainment in this house. They don't know where they are exactly.
So I can understand why they made the scares like that. Like, it's not just they had a good reason. It wasn't just because like they didn't feel like doing it anywhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that is his house.
Thank
you for picking this, Avery, and happy birthday.
Thanks.
To Avery.
I'm glad I finally. This is the way to get you to watch it.
Yeah, no, I've been wanting to watch this and The Night House for a very long time. So thank you.
We should review that one another time.
Yeah, totally. So good. I think you talking about this also helped me like it more as well. Definitely hearing your points and perspective on that. So. Yeah, I just kind of wish that I hadn't been bombarded with so much, like, oh my god, like, best horror movie of, like, the last whatever years. People always say that. I just feel like going into this as blind as, I think, did you watch it when it first came out in 2020?
I watched it in the pandemic.
As blind as you did, I feel like I would have had a higher regard for it.
Yeah, because it just appeared on Netflix, and my brothers and I were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and I would love to see this, no joke, as, like, I think it could totally be pulled off as on a stage, and I might even enjoy it more because then it's like just you're focusing on the story there, which is my favorite part of it. And the performances are first and foremost there. If you liked this episode, you can please review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those places, and follow us as well. You can follow us anywhere on Movie Night at Movie Night Mates on Instagram and YouTube. We're Movie Night Mates with the number 8 on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram at theamazingspider_Dan, and you can follow Jess on everything at mejessica_. And Avery, where can we find you? And everyone can go wish Avery a happy birthday.
Thank you. On just Instagram, amisincav.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much for listening. And next week will be another review. We're still deciding. Some are up in the air. Maybe Morbius. Maybe the new Chip and Dale movie. Maybe The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I don't know.
So
could be something. But just keep an eye out for that. And thank you so much for listening to this. It really means a lot. It really helps. If you suggest it to a friend or whatever, that's the best way to get us out there. We will see you next week for Movie Night. Goodbye.
Bye.